Good afternoon. All right. As we promised, we have a presentation for you pertaining to the health code. Yesterday night we did a synopsis of what we're gonna talk about when we talk about the code of health. The code of health. In other words, we're trying to say the 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 proper health practices. That's what we're trying to say in here. So now we'll look at the proper health practices. Now, looking at our society has been engulfed with number of diseases, a number of diseases of which many emanate from animal, animal, animal consumption or consumption of flesh. Now we'll try to understand from the biblical perspective what are we supposed to eat, and if we are supposed to eat flesh, how how is it supposed to be done? Let's go on. Yes. Now, before we go to the health practices pertaining to meat and other things, I want us just to read one text from the Bible, and the Bible reads, reading the King using the King James version. That is 3 John chapter 1 verse 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. A reminder from God that He is very concerned about our health. He desires above all things that our health is at its maximum peak. We are supposed to have a proper health, an active health. That's what God desires from us. And for us to prosper in health is that we have to follow proper health practices strictly and no room for improvement. Shall we move? Now, is eating animal flesh acceptable according to the Bible? Now, looking at health in a generic sense, health involves a lot of things, but today I just want us to focus on the animal flesh, meat eating. Now, the question is eating meat prohibited, or is eating meat prohibited? That's the accurate question. But the answer is very straightforward. Eating meat is acceptable according to the Bible. When you read the Old Testament, that is in the book of Leviticus chapter 11 verse 1, and you can read the rest of the passages. It explains clearly what kind of meat we are to eat. So I just picked out a few verses because it's a long chapter just describing what kind of flesh we are to consume, what animals, what insects, what sea creatures we're supposed to consume. Above the few, let me just read the few texts, the few portions of verses I picked. Leviticus 11, that's the King James version. And the title, what beasts may be eaten. So now the Bible reads, and the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying unto them, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts which ye shall eat among all that are on the earth. Whatsoever parteth the wolf, and cloveneth the foot, and cheweth the cud among the beasts, that ye shall eat. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them. that cheweth the cud, or of them that divideth the wolf as a camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the wolf. He is unclean unto you. So God was describing what kind of meat. So here the principle we're getting from here, there is a category of meat that God has allowed a man to consume. Now basically I just want us to look at meat consumption. So we have the answer. The answer is accurate, and the answer is yes. Human beings are to eat meat. We are to consume meat. Now, looking at meat consumption, we'll try to understand from the health perspective how we are supposed to do, and the practices that have been so neglected in this generation when it comes to the consumption of meat. Alright, knowing it is acceptable to consume meat, what are some of the practices that God gave to man in avoidance of complications? Leviticus 17, 13 and 15. Leviticus chapter 17 verse 13, we're reading. I'm reading in your own hearing. The King James Version reads, And whatsoever man there be of the children of Israel, or of the stranger that sojourneth among you, which hunteth or catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof, and cover it with the dust. So now, God is giving a clear-cut instructions when it comes to meat consumption. When either be it a stranger, either be it a child, you hunt. You get the animal. So now here is what you do. Like animals that are supposed to be eaten. For instance, you keep your own cows. Now you want to eat that cow. So now, here is what happens. When you slaughter it, let the blood ooze out. Let the blood ooze out. When the blood oozes out, dig and bury. But alas, some have developed so much perversion that they'll go up, they'll just get the blood of the cattle and collect it in a bottle or whatever, a pot, and let it dry and stiffen, and let them get a pan of hot cooking oil and put that thing, because it stiffens and it clogs. So when it cooks up, it tastes like good liver, and then it tastes like good liver. And people have been partaking of that. Again, they will get same with chicken, same with all animals. That's what people are doing these days. But according to the scriptures, that is wrong practice. And this is what is putting our society in problems, because this society has been engulfed with a lot of diseases emanating from wrong meat eating practices. Let us look at the blood. Look at blood first. When you look at the blood, let me give you, before, pardon that thought, look at, when we look at the blood, when you go to the hospital, for instance, there's a blood donation. When you want to donate blood, what are the first things the doctors will look for? When they get your blood, they are going to test it for diseases. So, coming back to the fact, meaning blood is a carrier of a lot of things, and disease included. So imagine You kill cattle, you get the blood, you let it clog, you let the blood clog. After the blood clogs, you fry it and do all your things. Now, what are you doing? So there is a high percentage that in the blood of that cattle, there is a lot of disease. And for a fact, you should take this into consideration. There is animal to human diseases that are transmitted. So, by God giving these instructions, he knew why he was giving these instructions. It is not that God was stepping upon our excitement, but it was because he loves us. It was because it was for our own good. Next, Leviticus 17:15. And every soul that eateth that which is dead for itself, or that which was torn with the beast, whether it be one of your own country or stranger, he shall both wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until even then shall he be clean. So now, another principle when it comes to meat eating practices. This generation, as we are living in the 21st century, I would say we have become lazy. We are depending too much on these butcheries. The butcheries. That's why we're depending much. We just go walk in there. No, I want meat. And then they give you. Now, question. Were you there when they were slaughtering that meat? Did they follow the proper procedure? When slaughtering that meat, you weren't there. So here is the game. Here's the chess game that is being played here. The only thing they're interested in is our money. They don't care what they feed you as long as they have given it to you. So, here's the thing. Maybe something died for itself. Maybe it died of mad cow disease. It died of mad cow disease. So they said, no, we can't just let such good meat go to waste. They just do all the things. They just remove the things and do all the necessary things. And then they just say, pack it in the fridge. It's going to the market. And you, being innocent, you don't know what was happening. You just go, oh, sir, I need 25 kgs of meat. Oh, 25 kgs of meat. You even give them the money. You give them the money, and there you go. You come back with the meat, and there you go. Complications in you. So, God had given instructions. This generation has become too lazy. We have become too lazy in the sense that things, 3/4 of things we are supposed to do our own keeping. Not trust our fellow man. Because to be frank, you can trust your fellow man with certain things. Because he is in the business of money. Be careful with these butcheries you go into. You want to collect meat. So, if you want to eat safe meat, eat the meat you see. Eat the meat that you keep. And an instruction comes. When a chicken or any of these animals that God had allowed us to eat dies for itself, don't dare. Just pick it up in a very cautious manner that you don't get the diseases. Take it and burn it. So in other words, God is avoiding man to eat carcass. Something that has died for itself, it's called the carcass. So now, because it makes you unclean. Eating animals that died for themselves, you don't even know what happens. It makes you unclean. So in this generation, we don't even know how many things we have eaten because men have become so bloodthirsty for money. Alright, next. Alright, continuation. 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 Leviticus chapter 3:17. Here is what God's saying. It shall be a perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwellings, that ye eat neither fat nor blood. I've talked a little bit on blood. Now let me rest on fat. You know, animals have what we call saturated fats in them. And these saturated fats, when we consume them, they bring a lot of complications. We have heart diseases, all sorts of things upon us. Because they're gonna narrow the veins. They're gonna narrow the passages where blood is supposed to pass. And when they narrow the passages, that's why we have things like high blood pressure and so on and so forth. Now, let's look at fat. If you want fat-free meat, the best way is to braise the meat. Because when you braise the meat, the fat oozes out. The fat oozes out. And when that fat oozes out, throw it away. Don't even make it part of the diet. Throw it away. Chicken. Most common in Africa. Especially most common in Africa. But since we're in Zambia, let's talk about chicken. And chicken, I've seen some bad practices. Here's what happens. They'll boil the chicken and the fat oozes out. You remove the chicken from the pot. And after making the nice soup, and then all of a sudden they're just gonna get all that fat of the chicken and pour it back into the soup, so that it has a flavor. Believe me, that is hazardous to do. It is putting a health at your own risk. God understood why He gave such instructions. It was for our own good, to avoid all these complications. If we follow these proper eating practices, when it comes to eating meat, we will avoid all these diseases. But alas, it's like we're now behaving like indoctrinated people who say, all right, my mom did it, my father did it, and I'm going to still do it. Now, having understood the perspective, of the biblical perspective, let us go to the scholastic perspective. Now, I'm going to read something here. This was written by some scholar I just got online. And here's what it says. Heart disease and related conditions. Eliminating saturated animal fat completely can be an important step in trying to reduce heart attack risks. So, heart attack is just one of the diseases that emanate as a result of intake of animal saturated fats. Saturated animal fat intake may cause a spike in the inflammation after consumption. which can increase the risk of heart disease as well as other chronic diseases. High-fat meal from animal sources may adversely affect our arteries, while a high-fat meal from plant sources apparently does not. This may be because of the saturated animal fat facilitating the absorption of bacteria and toxins that may be present in animal foods. Saturated animal fat intake can also cause our blood vessels to become stiff and inflamed within. Reducing animal fat intake may help lower cholesterol and lower blood pressure. About 50% of trans fats eaten by Americans come from animal fat, and trans fats are associated with increased heart disease risk. So, there is no need to explain, fellas. There's no need to explain, my friends, for it is clear and very, 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 I'll say, very audible. Saturated fats increase the risk of us getting chronic diseases. So God understood, and today the scientists are confirming what God had said 1,500 years ago, which is very clear. Fats are to be avoided. God made it clear. You should not take these things. Maybe, look at the text again. It shall be perpetual, started for all your generations throughout all your dwellings, that ye eat neither fat nor blood. God understood. Continuation. Let's look at blood. Let's look at ingesting of blood. People say, no, taking a little bit amount of blood, it gives you iron, but no. Let us not be let us not modify everything. Blood is dangerous. Blood is a carrier of disease in most animals. Let's go. So, the risks of ingesting blood of animals is 99.9% dangerous. The safeness or the advantage is narrow. So when the percentage of safeness is narrow, it is recommended that you abstain from the blood of animals, because as I mentioned, there's this practice whereby you kill the animal, you let the blood clog in a pot. When it clogs in the pot, get cooking oil, let it heat, and then put it there, fried. After you fried, consume. Let's avoid that. Let's go again. Ingesting animal blood is dangerous. Animal blood is prone to bacterial growth, so ingesting large amounts could increase your risk of infection and other illnesses. For example, hemochromatosis. That's according to Healthline. Another from Wikipedia. Zoonotic diseases are diseases that can be transmitted from animal to humans and from humans to animals. Zoonotic diseases may be acquired or spread in a variety of ways: through air, by direct contact, by contact with an inanimate object that harbors the disease, by oral ingestion, by insect transmission. There are 15 cattle diseases which with zoonotic potential in the United States, and some of which are common than others. They include anthrax, brucellosis, psychrotosis, pardon that, crypot anyway, pardon. These terms are too complex that pronunciation is 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 somehow difficult. But these are some, like one of them, as we had mentioned. We have like anthrax, brucellosis, and tuberculosis, ringworms, fever, rabies, and even some of which the list is endless. But to be frank with you, these diseases and friendly are all they can be transmitted. But to be frank with you, let us abstain from these practices. Some practices may be cultural and may be traditional practices, but as an educated person, and not schooled person, uneducated person, we should know carefully how we are supposed to deal with such practices. Anyway, the only phrase I can leave with you: temperance is a game if you want to play it safe. So visit our Facebook page, ANTI-DOGMA. So that's all about on the practices of health, the health practices, the code of health. Yeah, that's all right. But let us make sure that we embrace these practices. If we don't embrace these practices, this is the cause. That's why we are having so much complications in this generation, because of poor health practices. See ya and have a blessed day.